Matty back here with Trust All Truth, and in this edition I'm going to be speaking about how to control, why it's so necessary for us to control our emotions. Because our emotions don't only affect us, and this is, we're going to get into the base levels of it, and then we're going to go a little bit deeper, and then you can apply it to yourself personally however you would like to apply it. So basically, your emotions are also learned, just like any trait, right? The way you enact those emotions throughout your life is by things you observe, and they're influenced by the things you observe and the things you are taught, the things that you don't remember being taught, right? So, and as well as the absence of, right? So the emotions that we are capable of, we're capable of at any moment in time. The emotions that we choose to show are the ones that we have found to be most used in our environment, or most successful for a certain result that we're looking for. And so we're using a particular emotion to elicit a response for other people, right? Because emotions are not for us. Emotions are to demonstrate to other people, is to communicate with other people. That's what emotions are used for, right? Or are supposed to be used for. And that's the purpose of them, is for communication of something internal, or something that you're thinking, or how you're reacting to something, right? That's what emotions are used for. Emotives, right? That's where that comes from. Currently, today, people believe emotions are for themselves. Like, there's things that you're holding in. Oh, only I experience this, only I experience, like, this is only something I'm capable of. And that's something that we're realizing more and more every day, that how exactly similar we are in the capabilities. And this is what I tell people all the time. Everyone has the same potential, right? As a human, you have the potential to do what another human can do, right? Something that is in the capacity of the human set of activities, another human is also capable of. And there's biological factors that make some humans more equipped and adept to learning something quicker, or being able to perform something at a more accelerated rate, or at a higher, standard, and more proficiently than other people, and with less time investment, right? Oh wow, that is a beautiful hawk. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, that was beautiful. Yeah, so the capabilities that we have, and that expands into a whole nother thing. So let me get back to emotions. So the emotions that we present to other people are going to be the determining way that people will treat us, based on how we present ourselves. So you present yourself as a happy person, they're going to think of you as more positive, more trustworthy, right? So to be in control of emotions is to essentially is to be in control over what you represent, which is an influence of what people think about you. So if people want to control other people, all they have to understand is how to manipulate emotions. And if you are not in control of your own emotions, that means you can be easily manipulated, and there's not things you can readily do about that if you aren't in control of your emotions. So how do we fix this issue? Well, the issue starts with prevention. So how do you prevent this? In a young age, you teach children what things are necessary to have certain emotions towards. And But you have to be in complete control of yourself. So how do you teach an adult that is in a bad position, that needs to control their emotions right away, that's trying to learn this? How do you teach them? So you got to talk to people, right? You have to find someone you trust, someone that's not going to manipulate you. How do you find out who's not going to manipulate you? By hearing everything they have to say, hearing their plan, their course of action for what things that they'll implement into your life, right? And you see that path and analyze that, as I've talked about in choice making. So in order to make those decisions, you also do those same things with knowing who to trust. But it's a lot different, because the human variable, because they are making choices all the time. So instead of having a stagnant result, a human is consistently changing variables. So they're predictably unpredictable, right? So you have to account for that you may not get, you cannot, well, you can. You have to expect the unexpected. You have to expect not to get what you're expecting, right? From the result from an influence that you have, right? If you're forcing someone to do something, that's completely different, which shame on you, unless you're a primary caregiver for a child or someone that is physically disabled, and you're doing nothing but helping them live their life in the best way possible, then giving them control over themselves. But emotionally, if someone is able to manipulate you emotionally, which influences it, because in internal emotion, right, when you internalize it, when you have those things that you're not in control of, and you internalize it, and those things start stacking, like those things become into your thoughts, right? Your emotions go into your thoughts, right? Because an emotion is a result of a thought or an action, right? It's always a result of a thought, because it's what you think about an action that causes an emotion, which is so an emotion is a reaction to a thought, always, right? Because that's simple. Well, I'll demonstrate those if those are necessary. I'll demonstrate those in more specific videos about that particularly, which I really want to do. But I'm introducing these topics right now just so if you want to contribute, then we can come together and make a very specific and nice course for this, because this is what I'm planning on doing, and making these educational programs to reteach adults, and that we can teach children, right? So this is my idea. This is what Trust Soul Truth is all about. Is to get everything, every possibility of truth, and put it in. But what do you also need in order to know the truth? You need to know what things are opposing the truth. So the lies, you need to know all the information to decipher the truth. And we're going to be using our skills that I'll be making you aware of to attain in order to determine what the truth is. Right? Sometimes it's going to be very, very hard. Sometimes you may never find an answer, but each question you ask and answer opens a new question, a new line of questioning, a bunch of new questions, and you'll never have these answers if you don't ask questions, right? Even if you never receive an answer, right? Well, we've got to try. So going back to emotive states, because if someone's emotions are compromised, and you're not in control of what you feel, right? Because emotions are a feeling, in terms of a mental feeling, not a physical feeling. Emotions are a mental feeling that are subjective, right? That you can't say is wrong, right? But things can lead you to determine whether or not those things hold weight, depending on how trustworthy this person is, depending on their emotional state, right? Will determine how reliable someone's outlook on something particular. If you have more emotions towards a certain subject, you're going to be less reliable, because of your emotions towards that. If you can you can have emotions but set them aside, because we all have emotions. I have emotions. And this is what I like whenever I say these things, it's difficult. It's not difficult for me, but it's difficult for others to comprehend on a human level, on a sensitive level, on a complementary level, that, oh, so you're saying you never, no. So you're saying that you never been out of control, you never been able to have uncontrollable emotions. No, I'm saying that because I used to have uncontrollable emotions, I know how necessary it is to control them. And I recognized on my own at an earlier age, at a youthful age, that my emotions were harmful to what was already a hard life for me. So I understood that I was making my life worse by having these emotions control my thought process of how I was reacting to a already bad situation. So and this was I'm still learning, right? There's some things, some experiences that elicit emotions that I not suppressed, but I thought I was in better control of, right? But those are infrequent, because it goes back into then those things like you have degrees of control over things, but you should be in full control of yourself. But if you relinquish control, then someone else automatically has that, that influence over and that control over you. And you can't be in full control of your emotions if someone's manipulating you. Right, physically, or, well, that's not true. If you're being physically manipulated, you still have a choice over what you think about that and what emotions arise. However, it is understandable and more than justified for the emotions that you have due to physical interference. But when there's a non-physical interference and you're being non-physically manipulated, you will never have complete control of yourself. And how do you determine if you are being manipulated? See the results of your thoughts on your life and how they influence other people, the people that are not under the same manipulation, or maybe, but that you have a higher authority over. See how they're influenced by your actions. See how they think about you. See the good things and bad things they have to say about your character and flaws that you have. Is it a flaw that you say, oh, I can't control that? That's an emotion, right? Like that's just different. It's a personality issue, right? The way we present our emotions are what give people reason to detect that label our personality, is through our emotions and through our action and our actions and thoughts and our actions because of our thoughts and emotions, right? So that is what determines our personality. So if someone describes you as this, like, and there's a peeve that they have, if it's the non-physical peeve, that means that is something that you either are aware of and choosing not to do anything about it, or that you are not aware of and that you can make work towards. So so in determination of that, to get in control of yourself, understand what other people perceive you as, right? And then analyze that to see if it's accurate, because some people may be perceiving you incorrectly, or if that certain perception, if they see you in a certain light, because they are under a manipulation where their vision is skewed. Or if you can't disagree immediately, you have to hear them out completely, which is something I am learning to do currently, because there are some things. This is an example of a primary issue that I have, right? Is communication and understanding people, me communicating with people in a way that they understand, and me being okay with people not understanding, or communicating in a way that is more complementary to them, right? So that is what I'm working on right now, is communicating in the most effective way, which is non-physically. right? Non-physical communication. Often, when I'm in conversations, if it's about a subject that I don't know about, right? I'm a student. I'm a student, and I learn very quickly, and I listen thoroughly, and I engage in back and forth, asking questions, and then making comments and seeing if I have a grasp on it by that, and like having that back and forth. Even if I don't understand something, I can understand a concept and apply it and make and see a similarity with something else, and then I'll take that similarity and see if it fits there, and it may seem like I understand something, like that I'm more interested in something than I actually am, because I have knowledge about this thing that is very similar, and just apply it and I say if this applies, and there's like, what do you talk, like, you know it, like, you know it all, you're not listening. I'm just trying to get an understanding, so I need to be better with how I communicate with other people and listening better. Like, I'm a great listener, which people don't understand, but I like to make sure I'm understanding what they're understanding, which I have to do verbally, right? So I guess that's a covalent thing. That's a two-way street. Like, I have to make room for their communication, they have to make room for mine. But that is another thing is when I'm knowledgeable about a subject, and I'm relaying the information, I go off on trails, and it's not as consistent as it should be for the immediate understanding of the person I'm relaying the information to. So I don't give them the opportunity to tell me if they understand, and I'm working on that. Even though it's still a conversation, it's a lot of stuff that I care about is things that people don't care about. So it's things that people have, like, and if it's something that they don't care about, it's something that they've already been told, something like a blanket statement over something, and I choose to uncover all those blankets. And because the perception, if you have a certain perfectly solid and like something that is certain, like blanket statement over something, and you just take that as it is, well, I'll take it, but I'm going to analyze what I'm looking at. And even mostly before I take something, I analyze what it is to make sure it's true. And that's time consuming. So lots of people don't want to do that. And I understand. I didn't want to do that didn't want to do that for a ton of things. And then I realized how much things are connected, and I'm so interested in now learning about many things. So I've expanded beyond my original youth interests extensively. But back to emotions. So when these, I was talking, relaying this. So when I don't communicate very well, I don't give as much opportunity as I should for them to understand, and I don't go in maybe as in depth as I should. But I also understand that the people, like, this is another thing that I keep saying that I'm right about stuff, and that's something I try not to do anymore. I still do it very often. That's really the thing I'm trying to change, because my thoughts of intelligence has severely changed. I've made people feel so bad about what they don't know, and like when I was younger in my youth, and even currently, there's, like, I try to make it apparent, like, it's okay if you don't know this, but this is something, if you believe this, I know this through study not to be true, but don't take my word for it, go look for it, and you come back with your own conclusion, and we'll talk about it. If you still disagree, then we'll agree to disagree, but make sure you do as extensive research if we're going to have this conversation, right? And that's also something else. Like, when two knowledgeable people come together, I think that's something I'm realizing that I was doing with people. Like, sometimes people think you're on a peer level and you're talking peer to peer, and this is really what it is. This is my issue. This is my issue. When I have conversations, people think we're on the same level of, I'm like, oh, I just learned something new, let me tell you, and we know about the same amount of information. So I'm telling you this, and I'm telling you this, and you're telling me this. I mean, this person's telling me this, and they're thinking I'm hearing this for the first time because they just heard it, right? So then they try to talk about something at a very base level and a very surface level about something, and then it's like, come to me as someone they trying to relate to about, wow, isn't this amazing? And all the while, I've already have this much information about that certain subject because it's something, because I've had these interests throughout my life, and time because of not having I'm going to describe this better. I'm going to describe this better in a different video. But this was the introduction. I'm going to come back with a more linear thought about this, because I've described it really well on paper. I'm going to see if I write it down, and I'll just read it to the camera, because it's very, very important that this message doesn't get misconstrued. Because everyone has the ability to learn anything, everyone has the potential to learn anything they want to, and they will gain that ability, they'll reach that potential through, cultivating ability and skills. Which I said earlier, some people are more adept to being able to reach those things earlier at a faster rate. Yeah, it's because I don't have so many emotions, right? I control my emotions. I don't relate. I'm empathetic, and sympathetic, but that is to a point. When it gets to this wanting to solve a problem, like acknowledging a problem is one thing. So I understand, with my emotions, I use that to empathize and sympathize. And I can empathize and sympathize with a lot. And I think that's some people's issue, is like, I can relate also to what is causing them harm, right? And people don't like that. People don't like, necessarily, most people don't like when you talk about other people's positions. I hope this has been recording. Yeah, I was not certain that this was recording, but it is, and I'm glad. But yeah, I'm trying to get to talk to more people about emotions and stuff. It's a difficult thing. My control of my emotions has also made me more reserved at a point, it had me disacknowledge it and invalidate other people's emotions. So I understood the emotion, but I didn't care. Like, at a certain point, I was suppressing emotion. At a certain point, I was, and didn't care about other people's emotions. But I also wasn't trying to cause harm to people by ignoring their emotions. I said, let's just get to the matters. Your emotions don't matter. Right, but that in itself is causing harm, because I was saying emotions aren't necessary, rather than saying control your emotions so you can live life efficiently and heal properly. Because withholding is not healing, right? Putting a band-aid over something is not healing. The healing process needs air, right? You need to put it out in the open in order for something to heal properly. It needs to be exposed to air. It needs to be put out. So all these things, lots of things are very, I'll make all these analogies to things that you can realize in nature, which is what science is, which is what philosophy is, which is how all of these things that you could have heard before and can hear from other people have come to be. the difference between those people and myself is that I don't have an incentive, I don't have a monetary incentive to give this information out. And I'm not operating in a official capacity by a request of somebody or something or some entity, some institutional some institute or some university or government. All these things that these researchers, they are incentivized to find this research. My own incentivized, and that is happy and dandy, but those people that are getting money from it, they are also selling the information back, right? So for their own gain, they're trying to gain more by selling the information that they've attained, right? Which I think is so wrong. Because I don't operate in some, what do you call it? The best thing I could say is an official capacity, but by some ordained, some registered or accredited, sort of operation, people have less reason and justifiably, I suppose, because of the conditioning of the world, to not listen to what I have to say. Any principles that I talk about, they probably state in those books, but I don't know verbatim the name. Like, the things I describe are things that other people have already, because I'm not the first person to exist. There's been people existing for thousands of years and people writing texts for thousands of years that have observed these same things because they had no incentive, and people thought they were crazy as well, right? And then, come on, you... Wow, the stick fell out the tree and I was on high alert. High alert. Always be prepared for a fight, even if you're not the one initiating it. That's why you gotta keep yourself knowledgeable, keep yourself aware, keep yourself open. Not open to targets, but keep your mind open, always. And that's something else, like open-mindedness. I will talk about that in another video. But as I was describing the philosophy, scientists, these are people, some of the early ones had no incentive, no monetary incentive. They were living life. Well, this is what I assume, because I don't actually read their autobiography. I know some of the things because I looked into it, but I didn't get deeply invested into the people themselves, but into principle that one thing I saw, if I read one thing about how something worked, I went out to seek if it actually worked, and then by the time I got out there, right, and seeking how this actually worked, I discovered something else by myself, which is probably also mentioned in their, texts and stuff. And I just don't have the title for it, right? Like in psychology as well, like the description of mental states and description of all these mental conditions and illnesses, right? These things, the labels are brand new. The labels are recent. The capability and the actual, demonstration of them throughout human history have been throughout human history. They were just named because there was incentive to study them at this point with a closed off, right, people in studies from universities when when education became institutionalized, where they took a study group of people, right, and came up with these things and observed these things. But also the original observation was not of it was of a set group of people, but it was not a group of people that were intentionally inside of an experiment. It was life was the experiment, because life is an experiment, right? So I'll go into that. That's also something I've written down. I'll go into those details, but I'm just introducing these things right now. All right. Thank you all for watching, listening. This has been Trust Our Truth. All right. Be blessed, stay blessed, and I'll see you all later.